So, you've survived the super flu, you've had the same weird dreams as everybody else, and you can't decide whether to go to Boulder or Vegas. But what I want to know is, baby, can you dig your man? Blow your nose, stifle that cough, and strap in, because here's 19 reasons to read The Stand. Hi everyone, I'm Dave Musson at Dave Musson on Instagram, and it's my pleasure to welcome you back to our journey through the works of Stephen King in chronological order. Now this one is a biggie. We're going into his post-apocalyptic novel The Stand, which tells the story of a superflu virus that wipes out 99.4% of the population and then follows the survivors and the ensuing battle between good and evil. Mixed in, of course, with an unnecessary amount of ad hoc committees and sex. As I said, it's a biggie, so let's not delay any further. Here's 19 reasons to read The Stand, and as always, some spoilers ahead. So there are famously two versions of The Stand. We've got the 1978 original, which clocked in at about 800 pages, and then the 1990 complete and uncut version, which is about 400 pages chunkier. Chunky. And the reasons for this are actually quite practical. At the time of the original, the publishers literally couldn't manufacture that size book. They had no way of gluing it together so the pages wouldn't fall out. So the editors said to King, look dude, you've got to get rid of about 400 pages. Either we can do it for you or you can do it yourself. And of course, our man did it himself, banked the pages for later and brought them out in 1990, albeit with some bits rewritten, mainly to update the cultural references and the timeline a bit. So there are a bunch of interesting things that got added to the uncut edition. We had the whole section with the kid, yep, the little don't tell me, I'll tell you gun rapist fuckwit. And we get a lot more of the trash can, who I know is quite a big favourite character of many people out there. Perhaps most interestingly is the epilogue in the uncut edition, where Randall Flagg wakes up on a desert island and very quickly has control over the natives. He ain't gone. No. So this feels like a good point to mention old Randy Flagg. He is of course King's recurring bad boy, and we see him time and time again throughout King's works in different forms, but The Stand is where he makes his debut, and it's worth reading for that alone. King was inspired by a number of things to write this book, one of them being a line he heard on Christian radio that he found so inspiring he wrote out and pinned above his typewriter for inspiration. That line was, and I'll quote, "Once in every generation the plague will fall among them." Another point of inspiration was dead sheep. Well, to be precise, it was a chemical accident in Utah where some chemicals fell from a truck, split open and killed some sheep. But if the wind had been blowing in the other direction, those chemicals would have gone over a city. Scary. A final point of inspiration for King was around its epicness. He wanted to make his own Lord of the Rings style saga, but in a world we could recognise, i.e. modern day America. Captain Trips, the deadly disease in The Stand that ruins just about everybody in the world, actually makes an appearance in Night Shift. The story Night Surf follows some survivors of the same disease. So let's get into the novel itself, which is split into 3 books. Books 1 and 3 are great. Book 1 tells the literal end of the world, and Book 3 brings it all together in one epic climax. But I'm not letting anyone off the hook who doesn't think that Book 2 is boring as fuck. I'm not kidding about this. Even King got bogged down in Book 2, so much that he decided to insert a bomb and blow up a bunch of the characters. I guess by this point he killed most of the world's population, what harm in killing off a few more mainly annoying people. But he realised the cast had got too unwieldy, so had to throw something in there to shake things up and force him to actually finish the fucking thing. So, sound the magical Negro bell. We've got to talk about Mother Abigail. Her magicalness and her blackness are forced in your face at all times. And she ticks all the magical Negro properties in this story. She's a poor black woman in a story mainly about white men, and her main purpose is to help those white men before ultimately dying herself. Yes, she's a beacon of hope and good things, but surely there were different ways of writing her. Anyway, this isn't the last time we'll be sounding that bell in King's work. Sticking with Mother Abigail, can we take a moment to just think about the unnecessary amount of pages where we follow her taking a walk to her next door neighbours to kill some chickens and take a dump? Like, what the fuck? How did that make it into the middle of one of the most celebrated books of all time? So another problematic character is Tom Cullen. M-O-O-N. That spells somewhat difficult and awkward representation of somebody with a learning disability. Now, I know a lot of people love Tom Cullen as a character, and it's great that he has such a starring role, but at the same time, there's plenty of his character that is a bit cringy. So let's talk about one of the finest Stephen King characters ever. I am speaking, of course, about Kojak the dog. Now, he was originally called Big Steve. Wonder where he got that name from. But he's clearly the ultimate hero of this novel. Think about it. He fights off a pack of wolves, he makes his own way to Boulder, he saves Stu, and he restarts the entire dog population while also living to 16. And it's that last point around restarting the population that is his really heroic gesture. Because let's face it, a world where cats have survived and dogs haven't is not one anyone should be forced to live in. Fucking cats. Shout out to Dana Jurgens, another underrated hero in this story. She's rescued from a life of being raped, and then she volunteers to spy on Flagg out in the West, and now when she's rumbled and Randy Flagg works out into his, she doesn't hesitate to kill herself and save her friends. Hero. So a saga like The Stand needs its golden couple, and we get that with Fran and Stu. And sure, they're pretty likeable and they sort of have a happy ending, but do we really need to know quite how often they have sex? They're like rabbits. On the subject of fucking, let's talk about Flagg and Nadine. Now, Nadine is another somewhat troublesome character. Her main virtues seem to be that she is a virgin and she is waiting, saving herself for Randy Flagg. Randy being the operative word, although Nadine does let Harold do plenty of things to her in her other orifices. When she does meet Flagg in the desert and he has his way with her, it is a pretty traumatic scene, and that one night is enough to send Nadine crazy, to the point where she kills herself and Flagg's unborn child. Now, that kind of makes Nadine a hero, and there are plenty of good features about her in this book, but at the same time, she is also often just seen as a piece of meat, essentially a receptacle for the devil's jizz. Steve, you can do better. Now, there are a few examples of bands taking inspiration from The Stand because they just like it so much. Now, Metallica liked the phrase "Ride the Lightning" so much that they named a song and their second album after it, while Anthrax, who are notorious Stephen King fans, had the song "Among the Living," which is explicitly based on The Stand and is one of many of their works which is based on a King novel. Imagine being in a band and basing stuff on Stephen King. Like, who'd do that? Talking music, baby, can you dig your man? It's the soundtrack of the apocalypse, and it's the earworm that won't leave your head, even though you'll never actually hear it. Larry Underwood, hey? He's a righteous man! So, The Stand regularly tops the list when you ask King fans what their favourite book is, and it's unsurprising it's sold more than 4.5 million copies worldwide. And objectively speaking, I totally understand it. It is an end-of-the-world classic, an epic of all sorts of proportions that has everything you could wish for in that type of story. But, for me, it's not even in my top 10. Probably not in my top 20 if we're being honest. I just think it's overrated. So there you go, 19 reasons to read The Stand by Stephen King. I'm fully aware I could probably make a second video with another 19 reasons to read this one, so do let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, come and say hi on Instagram where I'm at Dave Musson, maybe join in one of my quizzes if you like on a Sunday, and do check out my band Chapter 19. Our song Stephen, which is all about Stephen King, has been playing in the background for this video. There's a link to our video for it in the description below. Catch you next time, and wear something comfortable as we're going on a long walk.